It's episode 87 of Unstuck, and today I'm going to give you 4 things to consider the next time life throws you a curveball. So, stay tuned. Hey there, friends. Welcome back to Unstuck. You know, this is your safe space to work on yourself, to do some personal development, to become the next level version of you, no matter what that looks like in your life. This is where we do that. Today, I want to talk to you about those times in life which are bound to happen. They're always going to be around the corner where you get that curveball. Something unexpected comes into your life, and gosh, we can really go with it in so many different ways. And I want to make sure that you're considering some things, some really important things as those curveballs come up. So that's what we're going to do today. First, I have just a few updates. It's been a while since I've given any sort of updates. If you are listening to these episodes in order, then you know the past few episodes I spent focus on money mindset. Got amazing feedback from those episodes. A lot of you realized how important that work is and how many stories, limiting beliefs you still have going on that are dictating your financial abundance or what does and doesn't come into your bank account. And I also hosted a money mindset 7-day coaching experience. We just wrapped up yesterday as I'm recording this. Yesterday was the final day of the 7 days. And a week before that was the kickoff. The 90-minute, went a little over, but not too bad. I was very proud of myself. 90-minute live group coaching experience. And it was just so cool. I was just blown away, first of all, by the number of people who were able to be there live. And just seeing your faces, as you know very well. Podcasting is an amazing experience, but I thrive on seeing people's faces and connecting with people live. And yes, over Zoom, but still seeing your faces and feeling your energy just made all the difference in the world for me. And it was wonderful. And I think you guys potentially felt the same in being able to connect with me live and with other listeners, other people who are doing this work with you. We kind of are able to feel like we are in this all together. So that was a really amazing experience. And then going through the rest of the week with the tools that I provided, some tools that I am only sharing in these type of settings that are kind of new to my practice and to also my teachings, and getting the feedback on that and how important they were to the process of getting into an abundance mindset. It just was so cool. The whole experience was amazing, and it is now completed. That being said, I do now have it available kind of as an after the fact coaching experience for you. You get access to that coaching call and all of the tools, lifetime access. If that's something that you missed out on and you're just now hearing about or didn't get a chance to sign up in time, you can go back and do all of that. The only difference is that you're essentially doing the coaching experience on your own time instead of it being a live thing where you have to put it in your schedule for when I'm going to be on and show up. You just can do it on your own schedule, and it's a recording. And that's it. You still get the full experience. So if you want to do that, head to ShawnMynar.com/empower. It was just like a really amazing experience, and I can't wait for you all to go through it. I did also set the date for the next round of Unstuck Entrepreneur. So if you are an entrepreneur out there or in the process of becoming a business owner and really getting into that role in your life, then we are going to have an April class. It's going to be the spring 2021 class of entrepreneurs going through UE together as a mentorship program, but also kind of a mastermind type situation where you get to connect so deeply with these other entrepreneurs and go through everything I've got, everything I've got when it comes to running your own business, from the mindset and energy work to the practical strategy and tips and all those things you have to have set up in your business, but really doing so in a combined format to where we're making sure our energy is top of mind. We're making sure our mindset and those limiting beliefs aren't getting in the way and doing the work. So if you want to be a part of that, head to ShawnMynar.com/unstuckbiz and get on the wait list for that. As I said, the beginning of April. I'm actually not going to give you the for sure date because as I'm preparing and planning for this experience, I have an additional thing that I'm doing. It's taking a little bit more time to plan and prepare for. So I might have to push it back a week depending on how much I can get done in the next few weeks. But I'll let you know when it gets closer. But I know for sure it will be the first half of April. And if you want to get in on that, ShawnMynar.com/unstuckbiz. And just to take one more quick second with my current or future entrepreneurs, or even just those of you who maybe someday might potentially consider working for yourself, but you're not there yet, you're going to want to be a part of my new Instagram account that is specifically for business owners. Current, future, someday off in the distance. Doesn't matter. It's going to really provide inspiration, motivation, insight, tips, just that kind of feel-good stuff to where we're working on your energetic expression in your business over on Instagram. So daily little motivational pieces, I guess you could say. And I started that a few weeks ago at Unstuck Entrepreneur. And I've been showing up live there once a week to go over one particular aspect of business and just connecting with you all over there. And it's been a blast. You might be wondering, why would I start a new Instagram account? And for me, it was just really wanting to really dial in to what I want to share right now, which is for business owners. It's just something that is really calling to me right now. And because of the following that I already have on my Shawn Mynar account, it just wasn't really connecting with a lot of you, which is understandable because you're not entrepreneurs. And it felt a little off to be talking about that specifically there when I could just start a new account and just have you all come over there to where we can openly discuss and share and connect as a group. And I can go live and talk about these specific things and connect with you all live too there. So that's why I'm doing it. Unstuck Entrepreneur on Instagram. I will say right now, I'm in the middle of taking a little hiatus from all social media because I'm in massive creation mode. And that's something I'm going to talk about over on that account once I come back, and how you can't really do both, or you really shouldn't potentially do both depending on your energy. But chances are you're going to do better if you take a little break when you're in a full-on massive creation mode, and we'll talk about that. So if you join, you may not see any posts from the past week or so, but I am coming back. Don't worry, and I will be all about it, just taking a little break. So I'll see you over there in a little bit. Unstuck Entrepreneur on Instagram. All right, let's get into this topic of curveballs. I chose to do this episode because I recently got a direct message on Instagram from a listener who was describing this curveball, and actually used those words, described this curveball that happened in her life, and just was kind of venting about it a little bit, which is absolutely fine. I'm here for it. But made it seem like it was the end of what she had thought was going to happen. Like it was this situation where now it was like her plans are over. What she had been manifesting, what she had been dreaming about and planning for was no longer going to be. And so what now? What do we do now? And I thought that that was a really interesting concept that I think most of us have dealt with at some point in our lives. I mean, I'm sure 100% of you listening right now have had a curveball, which to me, and I think in general for all of us, means that something goes against our plan for our life. It's not how things are, quote unquote, supposed to go. And it kind of puts a wrench in the system. What you thought was going to happen, how you thought your future was going to look, how everything was going to come along. So that's a curveball. And I just want to bring up this topic and share openly about a different perspective. And also I want to share a few curveballs I've had in my life. And I think we can all go back to our own curveballs and see the good in them. I mean, especially the further and further they get into the past, the more and more you're like, oh, thank goodness that happened. And I'll go over a few of those just in my own life. We'll kick it off with a quote, as always. This one is from Deepak Chopra that says, "This moment is as it should be because the whole universe is as it should be." And simply coming back to that concept, to this quote, when you are in the midst of a curveball and trying to figure it out and trying to understand why it's happening and getting through the muck of it, because a lot of times when curveballs happen, we're not that excited about it. We're not that happy. It tends to come with maybe a little bit of stress or anxiety or sadness, depression, depending on what the curveball is. And can we come back to this place where we understand that this moment, that moment that you're going through, and any moment we're going through right this second, is as it should be because the universe is as it should be. So can you find that place where it's not necessarily gratitude and excitement for the muck you're going through? It'd be great if eventually you could get to that point. But right now, can it just be this place of neutrality and acceptance that this moment is as it should be, and you don't necessarily know why? You can't see that point, but that's something we're going to talk about today, and getting to this place where we can be a little bit more inquisitive about these curveballs and see them for what they really are. So before we get into these 4 little tips I have for you, I want to dive into the concept of a curveball with you all, because when we experience a curveball in our life, the reason that you're experiencing it is because it's you noticing something that's out of your control. And you are trying to control something that's not really in your control. And then that curveball is basically just showing you and reminding you that your life isn't in your control. I mean, we can go to the point of what we think about we attract, and the things that we talk about here as far as energy, in that we create our experiences from the inside out. But we have to also come to terms with the fact that curveballs are simply a sign that you're not practicing acceptance, that you're not trusting in the flow of life and the universe, kind of similar to what Deepak said in that quote. So a curveball is really just that sign that you're overly controlling the flow of your life, which means you have stepped out of a place of trust and trusting that your life is going to flow in the way that it is meant to flow. Now, what we can control that we often bypass, I don't want to say bypass, but we kind of go in this one route that maybe isn't necessarily the route we need to go. And that is with how we react and respond to this curveball, or really to this event that is not going towards your plan or your desire to overly control your life. So it's really when we feel the need to try to control or try to figure out or try to manipulate, can we take a step back from that as far as the overall event is concerned, and instead put that energy towards the thoughts and emotional charge that you're bringing to it? And that's what we're really going to talk about today. That's really the end result, is getting to this place where life happens, curveballs happen, unexpected events happen, and that's how it's going to be. But how do we react and respond? What is that emotional charge that you're bringing to it? I do want to quickly, before we move on, just give you some examples of curveballs and tell you what I'm not talking about. So what I would say is a curveball, it would be like an unexpected breakup, could be the loss of a job, or thinking you were going to get a promotion and then getting passed up for a promotion. It could be an unexpected expense that you weren't planning on. It could be a worldwide pandemic. Hey, that's a curveball we weren't expecting, safe to say. These kinds of things, and as you can see, all of them are unexpected. They are not what we thought was going to happen, not what we had planned for our future, which again goes back to that idea of how present can we stay with our life. Yeah, it's fun to think about the future. We're always going to try to kind of figure out what might happen, but can you do so from a little bit of a detachment standpoint, so that when life flows, aka a curveball, you are more capable of managing it. Now, what I don't want to include in this conversation are things like the loss of a loved one, a serious illness, anything to that degree. Not that this, I still really believe that the things we're going to talk about are important and make a difference. If I were having a conversation solely about these tragic events, I would talk about it a little differently. So I just want to let you know, if in the process of coming up with a curveball that's happened in your life, or maybe you're going through one now, think about it more in terms of these unexpected, breakup, changing your job, changing your business didn't go as planned, that kind of thing, versus a tragic event. Okay? And one last thing is, while you're thinking of a curveball, I want you to also see if you can think of a positive curveball. Something that happened that was like unexpected, but in this amazing light. For example, you did get the promotion that you had no idea was coming. You weren't expecting that. Or you did get this unexpected lump sum of cash in your bank account. These are also curveballs. So this really shows you that a curveball can happen that is not according to your plan in a negative context, or what you consider a negative context, or a positive context, or what you consider a positive context. It's just interesting how we put so much more attention on the one that we think is coming from a negative context. And it shows really our tendency to focus on things that aren't going well. And this is a societal tendency that we tend to focus on those things that aren't going well or aren't going to our plan in a negative way, and trying to force our way out of it, or think our way out of it, or plan our way out of it. Whereas when these positive curveballs happen, we like, oh, this is so cool, great, awesome, and then you move on, and then you still end up finding that negative situation to focus on. So keep that in mind too, and maybe see if you do have examples of really awesome, positive curveballs, as well as those negative ones. All right, my 4 things. We're getting into it. Are you ready? The first thing is to start with self-care. Asking yourself, what do I need to get through this? What do I need to get through this? I want you to give yourself space to not try to figure it out right now. Like you have this thing that goes against your plan, something unexpected happened, and you're feeling kind of icky about it. I want you to allow yourself to feel icky instead of going right into planning mode to get out of it. Like, how can I turn this around? How can I feel better? What can I do to make this not hurt so much? What can I do to bounce back from this? That's great. You might get to a point where you naturally are ready to start moving around it or moving through it. But right now, what do you need to mourn, to feel, to let it out? Do what you need to do, and not from this place of trying to fix, but what do you truly need to do? So what do I need to get through this? It might be that you need a pint of ice cream and a night on the couch with Netflix. So you do that, you get through it. Maybe with that comes a few hours of crying or needing to punch a pillow or needing to just hug your bestie or your partner and just cuddle with them. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter what it is, but I want you to get in touch with what you really actually need to get through that. So you're there, you're doing what you need in that moment. And then what else? Because once you actually take the time to feel it and to do what you need to do the mourning and the letting it out and letting it go, then what else? Because that need will only last for so long if you actually allow it to. If you actually move through it and do what you need to do, then you will be ready to move on, to do the next step, to move beyond the curveball. And this is where we get into the idea of not wallowing. Not wallowing in your sadness, in your upsetness, in your I didn't want this to happen, now what's going to happen? This is where we allow ourselves to fully feel as long as we need to fully feel, and then get to this point naturally where you're like, okay, I fully felt, I did what I needed to do, and now I actually have an idea that came to me without overthinking it of how I can move beyond this, of what else there is in store for me. Because what we want to do, and you're going to find this out when we go through the other three here, the overall goal when a curveball comes up is to move into a place of expansion and growth so that you have the ability to bring in the opportunity that really this curveball is setting up for you. That's really all that's happening, is giving you another opportunity that is definitely going to be an even better opportunity. It's definitely going to be the thing that moves you to the next level. But if you are either stuck in emotion where you're not feeling it, or you're trying to plan out the next step without actually acknowledging how that curveball made you feel, or you're wallowing, you're stuck in the spiral of kind of feeling but not really expressing that emotion. And so you're just in this feedback loop of my emotions are not being expressed, but also on the surface. So I'm just sitting here wallowing. But when we take the time to do what you need to do to get through this, then you automatically put yourself in a place of receiving. Then you can move into this place of expansion and growth where that new opportunity arises for you. That's the difference. That's why we want to feel as much as we need to feel and take the time to do it. So start with self-care. Number 2, get curious. What am I supposed to learn or take away from this? Again, I want to remind you that a curveball, so think about it this way. Think of if you've ever gone bowling, which I think we probably all have at least seen how to bowl. I don't know if maybe there are some people that have legit never gone bowling, but if you understand how bowling works, now have you seen a child bowl? And they put up the bumpers for the child so that no matter what, it cannot go into the gutter. No matter how back and forth that ball goes as it's going down the alley, it's pretty much always going to hit a pin. It's not going to go in the bumper. So your curveballs are those bumpers. And even though it seems like at the time that curveball is that ball going in the gutter, because it's derailing you from the straight line, the straight path to the pins to where you can get a strike. And we think it's actually us going in the gutter. Now what the heck's going to happen? What it's doing is putting you back into a place where you can get that strike. Because what we don't see when we're in it, and a lot of times it takes months, years down the road to where we can understand how that is actually what was happening. But when we're in it, it's hard to see that. What it's doing is pulling you back on track towards your purpose, towards your reason, your dharma for being here. And we can't always see that. But I want you to recognize that that is the purpose of these curveballs that we often overlook or we often don't realize until, like I said, months or years down the road. So can we get to that place a little quicker? And even when you're going through it, understanding and getting that visual of the bowling alley and how it's actually putting you back on track. You were sliding off. You were going towards that gutter. But your curveball was the bumper to put you back towards your goal, put you back to getting that strike and your purpose. Okay, so think about it that way. And this is where we can get really comfortable with the idea that there is a takeaway. There is something coming from this experience. So what are you taking away from this? What learning experience is coming from this? And it's okay if you don't know. It's not like you ask yourself this and then 30 seconds later you have the answer. No, that's probably not how it's going to go. But even just being open to the idea that you are going to learn something really amazing in this experience or through this experience, and you're going to have a takeaway, then you can at least, again, be in that receptive mode and be open to figuring out that experience, to figuring out what you have to learn from it. All right, the third thing is what I am calling spiral up. A lot of times we get into this place when something unwanted or unexpected happens. And this is where that the listener who DM'd me not too long ago on Instagram talking about the curveball, this is what was happening is she was spiraling down. She was thinking this thing happened and now it's going to mean that this can't happen, what I thought was going to happen, the things I thought I was manifesting, all these things can no longer happen. So we have a tendency, again, as a society, we tend to focus on the things that aren't going well, focusing on the things that we need to try to change or what we don't want to happen. And this happens with these unexpected events, these curveballs, where we suddenly think it means everything is going to go wrong. Nothing can go as planned. We're no longer in alignment. We're no longer working towards our purpose or our passion, and we spiral downward. Instead, from now on, when you have a curveball, that inevitable thing that's going to happen, I want you to spiral up. So what if this curveball is the best thing that ever happened to you? And I want you to ask yourself that question, I would recommend even journaling that question out. What if this curveball is the best thing that ever happened to me? What if? And then get into that place where you can see all of the good things that could happen because of it, which we don't automatically take the time to do, I would say. But when you're actually getting to this place where you're letting yourself have that experience of journaling through this question, see what comes up. It actually might come, probably will come from your intuition. And it's a matter of getting that ego out of the way so you can experience this. But you will come up with probably 10 different things that could actually happen in a positive direction because this thing happened. You really will. You will find it. So we can spiral up. And this is going with the idea, again, kind of going back to what Deepak said, that everything is rigged in your favor. So what if the universe has rigged everything in your favor? Just get curious. Just get curious. Now, this is also where we can get into reminding ourselves of curveballs that ended up being the best thing ever. I have several. I have so many, actually, and I'm sure you do too. I'll give you 3 examples in my own life of how curveballs that were awful at the time ended up being the best thing ever. And I want you to do the same. Again, something you could journal on when you're in the thick of it. And even if you are so deep in the thick of it that you can't think of your own, call a friend, call a family member, and ask, hey, when did something kind of unexpected bad happen that then turned into the best thing ever? And you will get a number of stories which will help you prove this concept right. So the first one I have is from a long time ago, back in my early 20s, when I was in a relationship that I thought was going to be the relationship. I thought we were going to get married. It was my college sweetheart. We'd been together for 3.5 years and actually talked about marriage and our future and kids and all that kind of stuff, which looking back now, I don't know why I was agreeing to have kids when that's not something that appeals to me. But anyway, we broke up. He broke up with me. And I was absolutely devastated. I don't know if I've ever been so devastated in my life. I couldn't eat. Could barely work. I just was kind of a zombie throughout my day because I was so sad, so upset about this. And it got to the point at the time I was just out of college and I had moved back home after college and started a job in my hometown. And I was living with my parents. And I got to the point as I was going through this breakup, I will never forget. My mom came into my room. I was probably crying. This was like months after we had broken up too. And I was still just in this space. She came into my room and she said, "You need to get out of here. You need to move. I think you need to go live with your sister." And it was starting the summer. So I agreed that I need to who wants to live with their parents in their hometown as they're going through the worst breakup of their lives? I didn't, at least. So my sister was living in Colorado at the time, and she still does. And I agreed to at least move there for the summer. I was just going to spend my summer there, get just a fun job, and have some time to myself, finally live kind of like on my own, away from my family, and with my sister. So not totally away from my family, but see what happened. So I agreed to just go there for the summer. Quit my job, packed up all my stuff, said goodbye to my friends that had been friends since middle school, and my dad drove me out to Colorado. I mean, hello, here I am. What is it? 16 years later, Colorado is my home. It is my everything. I found my actual life partner here in Colorado, my family, my friends, my job that turned into a business, my first home. I mean, it's everything. And of course, none of that would have happened had I stayed in that relationship or had I not gotten to that point of being ready to move. I would have stayed living in my hometown probably. Who knows what would have happened. So that was one where at the time it was the most devastating experience, such a curveball. And now I'm like, oh, thank goodness that happened. Number two is the moment I, again, will never forget. I think I've said this before on this podcast, but if not, before I started my own business, I worked at a big box corporate gym as an operations manager. And I did that for 8 years. Worked my way up, got to basically the highest point that I could in that position, and was actually thinking that my next step would be to get promoted to the club manager position and then work my way up through that. And I remember having a meeting with the district manager at the time and thinking that it was going to be a conversation about my promotion to club manager. And instead, it was a conversation about how I really shouldn't be in management at all. Not because I was bad at my job or anything like that, but because, I mean, to be honest, I was a woman, and I didn't see that at the time. I was young, but now I see that there weren't club managers. There was one club manager that was a female out of hundreds. And so I think that was what the conversation actually was. And of course, devastation. But what that actually led me to do is to be like, you know what? Fine. I'm getting out of this thing entirely. And I became a personal trainer for that company. And then not even 2 years later, I think it was a year and a half later, opened my own business. So that was the moment where at the time I was like, what the heck am I going to do? I've just spent 8 years working my butt off for this company to move to the next level, to get that promotion and get the raise and all that stuff. And thinking that was what was going to happen, and only one conversation to find out, complete curveball. Nope, not happening ever. And so here I am, having my own business now, 8 years into my own business, and it being the best thing that has ever happened to my career, to what I wanted, how I wanted to experience life. So that was another one. Wouldn't have happened. I would not have happened. I would still probably be working for that company because I'm very loyal. Although I would hope that eventually my entrepreneurial spirit would get the best of me regardless. But anyway, like, I just can't even imagine what would have happened. And then the last thing, what is this? I've talked about it a lot here on the show, the mysterious illness, quote unquote mysterious illness that turned into being actually toxic mold exposure. That is at this point in my life, that was the low point of my entire life, was experiencing that illness and everything that came along with it. And I'm actually going to talk about that in an episode coming up, I think next week actually, talking about that rock bottom moment and the things I learned. But what also came out of that rock bottom moment that I am so grateful for, that curveball, is because it launched everything that I'm doing today. Everything that I'm doing today, what I'm talking to you about today, is because of that moment, is because of that illness that I went through, and those years of being just so depressed and so down and out, and thinking I was never going to get my life back, and just so much. But it prompted me, which you'll find out when I tell you the full story in a few weeks or maybe even next week, but it prompted me to do this work and to really understand my body physically, but also mentally and emotionally, to really get into this energy work. And here I am. It also expanded my business exponentially. By going through that process, I was really able to learn so much more that I could teach to others, and it exponentially expanded my business. So, as you can see, in all of these cases, I am so grateful for all of those curveballs that at the time hurt and were confusing and were hard and painful. And now that I'm out of it, I'm so grateful for them. So grateful for them. And in every single case, I had something to learn. I had a place of expansion. I had an opportunity, I guess, of expansion. And it worked out in my favor. And my only wish, which it's okay, but my only wish would be to know back then what I know now and what I'm sharing with you now, which is to get into that place of curiosity of like, what can I learn from this? Or how is this actually working in my favor? What are some of the great things that could come from this thing that feels really awful right now? So I want you to remember that. Remember these moments for me. If you ever get into this place where you can't remember your own curveball moments that worked out in your favor, there are plenty of experiences, plenty of examples for you to pull from to get yourself into a place where you also can spiral up. And then the last thing I want to talk about quickly is a reminder, I guess, to let go of the need to plan and predict the future. And that is what we try to do, understandably. But again, can we do so from a place of detachment versus the need to know and the need to figure it out? Knowing that change is inevitable. And it doesn't mean it's a bad thing. We only think that it's a bad thing because we tried to predict the future. And while it's fun to think about the future, and I think it can be great, find that place of detachment, knowing that the present is all we really have. And knowing that it's all working out just as it should be, because the universe works out just as it should be. And when you can get to this place of knowing that while you're trying to predict the future, it could change. And if it changes, it's not going to totally derail you. That you're instead going to be open to the new experience that it could bring or that it will bring. Then you have found that place of letting go, where you don't have to plan and predict every single thing that's going to happen in the next month and year and 5 years and 10 years and 20 years. You can practice detachment. Okay, those are my 4 things for you to consider the next time life throws you a curveball. First of all, start with self-care. What do I need to get through this? Then get curious. What am I supposed to learn or take away from this? Thirdly, spiral up. What if this curveball is the best thing that ever happened to me? And then lastly, let go of the need to plan and predict the future. And your homework for today, I think it just would be really fun for you all to do what I did and think about those experiences that were total curveballs for you, that you thought were just the end of life when they happened, just the worst thing, and they hurt and they were painful and they were confusing and just not good situations that really ended up being the best thing ever. So do that. Just brainstorm a little bit. I think it would be fun. All right, that will do it for this episode of Unstuck. Thank you all so much for being here. If this podcast is helping you at all, I'm getting so many, just as a side note, I'm getting so many direct messages on Instagram and emails and things like that from you all saying how impactful the work that we do here on Unstuck has been for you. And thank you so much for doing so. As I've said before, when you're talking into a microphone and don't have that immediate connection, sometimes you wonder, like, is this helping at all? Am I even saying anything that resonates with anybody? So getting those direct messages has been so helpful. Thank you all so much. And please continue to do so on either at Shawn Mynar or at Unstuck Entrepreneur. I will read them for sure. But also, if you could take just a few moments of your time and leave a review for Unstuck on Apple Podcasts, that just helps this show more than you can even imagine. It is the way for me to get this work into the hands of, or really the ears of others who need it. And I know it would be really beneficial for a wide range of people. And I'd love to connect with them. So if you have a few minutes to spare, I would so appreciate a review. I read all of those. That is just all of my inspiration and all of my motivation comes from reading those quick little nuggets about your experience with the show. So it would mean the world to me. I would love that. Thank you all so, so much for everything. I appreciate every single one of you. And until next time, take care.